Hey guys, it's Luke. I'll be bringing you guys a video on my top 3 fades and sleepers for this year's Valspar Championship. I'm excited to get to the event. I'll be driving there later on today. But before then, I figured I'd get out this video to give you guys my reactions to a lot of the ownership projections that have matured over the week, as well as some of the game theory that I'll be employing this week for my DraftKings lineups. So with that being said, we'll go over some of the guys I think are overhyped. Those are my fades. And some of the guys I think that are being slept on a little bit, and those would be my sleepers, obviously. So getting into my top 3 fades, coming in at number 3 is Emiliano Grillo, who's coming in at a price tag of $8,300. So Grillo's a great ball striker, elite ball striker, but he has a couple fatal flaws. That number one flaw of his, though, is his putter. He's an atrocious putter. He's typically ranked in the bottom 170 to 200 on tour. And even though there's only 150 people playing every week, right? So that's terrible. And the public this week seems to be, forgiving and forgetting him of that. He's projected to be owned 17.5% of the time. That's an extremely high ownership number. And now I know that he played really well at the RBC Heritage. He did come in the top 5 there. But that was because he gained 3 strokes putting. Now, Emiliano Grillo only gains strokes putting in an event 10% of the time. And if we look at when he gains more than 2 strokes putting in an event, it only happens 1% of the time. So it happens like once every couple years. That was a once every couple year performance. We've seen him do it in the past in win tournaments. But for that to happen 2 weeks in a row, it's just not going to happen. He's not a great putter. He's not the type of putter to carry momentum from week to week. You usually see that with some of the elite putters on tour, and Grillo is definitely not an elite putter. So if he was owned closer to 5-6%, I think I'd be willing to take a stab on him, but at 17.5%, he's an easy fade. Coming in at number 2 on my fades is Chris Kirk, who has an $8,200 price tag. And he's a player who has consistently made cuts. He's impressed of late. But to be honest with you, on a deep dive, he's only been in the optimal lineup just once this year on DraftKings. So while he's made cuts, like I said, put up top 25 performances, that hasn't necessarily translated to DraftKings points. As we know, a lot of the DraftKings point scale is based on your finishing position, but a lot of it's also based on the amount of birdies that you make. And one thing that Chris Kirk does well, and it does well for his golf game, is that he hits the ball straight. He doesn't have many bogeys on the card and that kind of thing. But that also means he doesn't make as many birdies, right? So he's not like the best player on tour. He's not making the same birdies as all those other guys. He's just avoiding more of the bogeys. And while, like I said, that's good for finishing position, it's not great for DraftKings scoring. So again, at 21.5% ownership, it's just understanding he's hardly ever optimal, right? Not to say that he's a bad play. I think in cash play, he's probably the best play on the slate. I would definitely play him there. He's a pretty safe bet to make the cut. But in a GPP and in most DraftKings contests, I don't think he's going to get there for you. So again, he's a fade for me this week. A lot of that's just due to his scoring ability on DraftKings. And coming in at number 1 for my fades this week is going to be Corey Conners, coming in at $9,600. Now, this is either going to make or break my week. Corey Conners has been on an absolute tear of late. He's number 1 on tour in shots gained tee to green, number 1 in shots gained approach on tour. So you're wondering why I'm fading him. Well, it's because he is expected to be owned nearly 25% of the time. That is one of the highest projected ownership marks that we've seen. We've seen some golfers come in at 31, 32% ownership, but they were projected well below 25. This week, Corey Conners could actually be owned 35 to 40% of the time. I think these projections could be a little bit off, as they are sometimes. He's extremely polarizing. Again, he's been completely lights out. He's had 4 straight top 10s. But here's the issue with Corey Conners. So he's gained over 2 strokes putting in his last 4 events, so that's why he's put up those top 10s. But as a career baseline, Corey Conners is one of the worst putters on tour. So there's either one or two things going on right now, right? He's getting lucky. So case one would be that he's getting lucky. He's just making more putts than usual. He was on a little bit of a hot streak, and that's why he was gaining over 2 strokes in those 4 events. That'd be case 1. Case 2 would be he's actually a great putter. All the data we've seen for the last 2, 3, even 4 years on tour has just been wrong. It's just been outlier after outlier after outlier, and he's actually a great putter. Now, I don't think that's the case, right? I think it's case 1. He's been a little bit lucky, and it seems like the public is taking case 2 and taking it to heart. He's the number 1 owned player on the slate. He's he's actually number 3 in the betting odds in Vegas. So Vegas is also treating him like that. But I think it's a little bit of a trap right there, right? If you look at his career baseline, he's just not that good a putter. And for somebody to just go from one of the worst negative putters on tour, to one of the best putters on tour is highly unlikely, right? For him to improve gradually over time, yeah, I'd buy that. But to go from one of the worst to one of the best, it's just not possible. He'll definitely be a fade for me this week. Like I said, it's probably a make or break kind of moment. But at 23.5%, he's definitely a fade. Now let's talk about some of my sleeper picks for this week's Valspar Championship. Coming in at number 3 for my sleepers is Ian Poulter at a price tag of $7,400. Now, while Poulter isn't necessarily a golfer I love playing, he's shorter, his iron play is very inconsistent, and he really does it with his short game. This week, I think that kind of skill set is going to do really well. It's going to be a hard golf course. Again, the winner's probably going to be in the single digits under par. So having players that are good at making pars, good at saving pars when necessary, is going to be valuable this week, especially for some of those guys further down the price board. With Ian Poulter, you're getting ownership that's less than 3% right now, so not a lot of the public's on him. Again, that's, he hasn't been the best golfer of late. In the last year, he's only had 5 top 25s, but of recent, he's had 3 of those top 5s. 3 of those 5 top 25s, and he's obviously been on a little bit of an upward trajectory. So I like the ownership. It's really easy to get leverage on Ian Poulter this week. Again, he has a tendency to do well at these shorter golf courses where he feel like he has a chance. I mean, you can see him at the match play. He, ups the intensity. He obviously feels like he has a chance to win the match play, Ryder Cup matches, those kind of things. At shorter golf courses, I feel like he also has that same type of intensity because he feels that ability to win. At longer golf courses, even like the Masters, where it requires length to win, I feel like he, doesn't have that intensity because he doesn't feel that same ability to win. Maybe that's just my narrative. It's what I see with him. That's why I think he does so well at those events. And I think this is one of those events that can let him shine. And that's why he's my number 3 sleeper. At number 2, we have Paul Casey coming in at $10,000. Now, I did not think at all that Paul Casey was going to be a sleeper when this week started, but he is coming in at just 9% ownership right now, which for Paul Casey is way too low. If I told you that the guy who won in 2018, 2019, obviously we didn't have a tournament last year, was sub 10% ownership, you'd probably call me crazy, but that's the situation we're in right now. Paul Casey has a chance to be the third time, I don't even know how to say this, a three-peat champion, and people aren't on him this week. He loves the golf course. He has 3 second-place finishes, 2 first-place finishes, which obviously we've seen the last 2 years, and he's coming in right now number 1 in the field in shots gained total for the last 2 months. So he loves the golf course. He's the best player on the planet right now, and people aren't playing him. I think a lot of that has to do with their hesitancy to play a guy who's won twice in a row, but he doesn't have to win, right, to pay off that $10,000 price tag. If he finishes in the top 10, he makes a bunch of birdies, he could pay it off that way as well. So I'm playing Paul Casey this week. I didn't expect to be playing him at the beginning of the week. I thought he'd be way too popular, but I guess that's the gift that keeps on giving. They give me low ownership here, and I'll be all over it. So that's why he comes in at number 2. My number 1 sleeper this week is also somebody I did not expect to have on this list, and that is Scottie Scheffler, coming in at $9,800. And he's also somebody I mentioned in my DFS preview. He was my second man in, somebody I absolutely love this week, somebody I think that could win this week and have that breakthrough win. And he's only being owned 7.5% of the time. So again, I think a lot of that has to do with his price. He is priced a little bit higher than we're used to seeing him priced, but he's coming in with great form. He's been one of the most consistent players on tour. He hasn't missed a cut in over 10 starts. And he's also number 3 in the field in shots gained total over the last 2 months. So he's essentially third best player in the field right now behind Corey Connors and Paul Casey. And his skill set fits well too. He's a long player off the tee. He's able to gain a lot of strokes off the tee. He's an elite iron player from time to time and has a really, really solid short game. So all around, I love that he's being owned in those single digits, him and Paul Casey. I was not expecting that, to be honest with you. They model really well. I think a lot of that is just narrative and hesitancy towards that narrative. You know that I'm a really big stat guy, right? So I'm all over these guys, and if they burn me, they burn me. They're one of the best players in the world. They fit the course well, and I don't expect them to. So that's all for this week's fades and sleepers. Let me know in the comments, guys, who your biggest sleeper this week is. Maybe it's a guy further down the board. Maybe it's Dustin Johnson further up the board who's not being owned much. I won't be there on DJ. I think he's going to struggle. Actually, I'm going to be playing a little bit. He's just not going to be one of my bigger sleepers this week. But let me know what you guys think. As always, if you guys enjoyed, make sure to like and subscribe. It helps me out, and make sure that you guys can see the content in the future as well. Good luck, and